Aloha. Welcome to the Mr.G podcast. This is episode 26. It is Saturday, June 10th, 2022, almost 7 a.m. here on the outskirts of Chinatown in Honolulu, Hawaii, the largest city in the Pacific, my city, and the best city that I've ever lived in. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about UFOs. We have the History Channel's 5 most credible modern UFO sightings, which they just recently came up with. They're going to mention some of the videos that you've seen, some of the information released by the New York Times and released by the Pentagon within the last few years. Now, new UFOs are in the news right now because a former intelligence officer, David Grush, recently came forward a day after my podcast when I said somebody's going to come forward and start talking about how the U.S. military has UFOs in their possession, and they have been working on reverse engineering for 30, 40 years. So David Grush recently came forward, and he's done a lot of interviews, and other high-ranking officials have come forward anonymously and have also admitted to the U.S. military and other governments being in possession of saucers and different types of craft, even underwater alien craft. So I've become a UFO enthusiast, or I've been doing research on UFOs. I don't like labels like UFO enthusiast, but I was in the camp like most intelligent people for most of my life up until about 5 or 10 years ago, where the majority of the intelligent people on this planet had come to the consensus that UFOs were not real. They were, something that's made up, something that you hear about on AM talk radio. I would make fun of people who said the moon landing was fake. I would make fun of people who, follow conspiracy theories. But now we have our own government admitting that there are UFOs. And so in the past few years, I have done research, and in my own research, I've found the most credible UFO sightings and the most credible UFO images and pictures and video that you can see for yourself. So we're going to go over the History Channel's 5 most credible UFO sightings, and then I'm going to tell you about mine. I'll tell you about mine right now off the top of my head. The most credible UFO sightings stories that I've ever heard. The best picture that's ever been taken was taken in the Scottish Highlands in the UK. And this picture disappeared for almost 20 years. I'll read something about it in a minute, but just from the top of my head. And it reappeared within the last few years. And it shows a craft, a saucer craft, and it has a good image. And it even shows like a hatch where a door on the craft. And behind it, to put the picture in perspective, because the picture was taken probably in the early 80s, you see a jet from the Royal Air Force following it. And that picture, I think, is the most legit photograph of a UFO ever taken. Recently, in the last week, all over social media and all over the regular media, the mainstream media, we have the story about the UFO that landed in somebody's backyard. And now in 2023, there are literally thousands of people have made their own videos about this, and they've analyzed the grainy video image that was taken of the startled family. And some of them have even slowed it down and used infrared and did all this editing. And you can actually see what looks like an alien. And to the eyes, it's like, no way, that's got to be somebody in a mask. Like, that's your first instinct. It's like, aliens don't exist. Like, that's not aliens with the big eyes. That's on X-Files. That's on TV. That's not real. That can't be right in front of you, but it is. And the thing is, as human beings, we can't see something unless we believe it first. And I'll give you a great example. Before the colonists came to the United States mainland, and there were just Native Americans there. The Native Americans always traveled in canoes, and they didn't have these huge modern boats that the Spanish and the English and the Portuguese had. And so they would never imagine a boat on the ocean that large. So when the first colonists came, Columbus and all of them. I believe it was Columbus that this story originates from. They Indians, the Native Americans on the coast, they would go to the coast and they could see the water changing. The tide would be different, which would tell them that there was something out in the ocean. But when they would look out there, they couldn't see anything on the horizon. They would just see, the ocean and the sun. However, there was a huge ship out there, a huge Portuguese ship carrying, or a Spanish ship carrying Columbus and everybody else. But they just could not see it because they had never seen a ship so big. They could tell that the tide was different, but even though the ship was right in front of them on the ocean, they couldn't see them. So it took them to get the eldest, most wisest member of the tribe, and they brought the most wisest, eldest member of the tribe out to the ocean, and they're like, can you see anything out there, because it seems like according to the tide that there must be something out there. And the eldest Native American looked out into the distance and was like, yeah, there's a ship out there, a big boat. And as soon as he saw it, everybody else was able to see it as well. So really in life, you just have to be able to believe things. And I thought about that ship story when I was analyzing video of the recent UFO landing in somebody's backyard in Las Vegas. And it's like, it's something that you could never contemplate, that it's right in front of you. But also, when you look at the most credible UFO sightings, it's a couple of them that come to mind is the one in South Africa, or the one in Africa and Zimbabwe, where a UFO landed at a elementary school, and two space creatures, described very similar to the ones that landed in Las Vegas, got out with peaceful intentions and spoke to these children telepathically and told them that they need to do better with taking care of the earth and the environment. And to this day, none of those school kids have ever changed their story. And that's really hard to do with kids because they'll just say anything a lot of times. But all of these kids had the exact same story. All of the instructors had the exact same story. Recently, a UFO documentary about a UFO that landed in Brazil, and Joe Rogan has talked about it on his podcast numerous times. But also in that instance, there was a UFO that crash landed, and there was an injured alien, and the injured alien was in a corner, and two Brazilian girls saw this alien. They were just feet away from it, and the alien spoke to them telepathically, telling them, help me, please help me, I'm dying, and it freaked out the kids, and they took off running, and like a Brazilian military guy came up and he picked up the creature and he started walking off with it, but he ended up developing some toxic virus from the alien creature and died a few days later. So what those stories have in common is the aliens were right in front of them. And now that they seem much more credible, now that the United States government and the Pentagon has admitted to having dozens of these craft. And it's hard to actually describe them and what they are, because in one way, logically speaking, they could not be from they could be from this earth. Uh, when you look at it, Albert Einstein said, and many astrophysicists have stated, that it's impossible to travel at the speed of light. And the next closest star system, even if you could travel almost to the speed of light, is 4 light years away, at least. The Milky Way galaxy is 100,000 light years away. So when you look at these aliens and they're, right in front of us, they're experiencing, of course, they have different biology, but they're experiencing time and physics the same on this planet. And so you're like, oh, well, if aliens can travel through time, then 100,000 years is nothing for them. But it's, if they're on this planet and they're running around, and like the aliens that landed in Las Vegas, one of them supposedly climbed on the roof. They're 8 feet tall, so getting on a roof would be really easy. But another one climbed into a tractor and like started to try to drive the tractor. Imagine that, you're just like chilling in your backyard. All of a sudden, aliens like, oh, look, a tractor. See if I can drive this around. What if he had got it started? Would he, like an alien driving around your backyard trying to work a fucking forklift? Like, isn't that fucking Like, you can't write that shit. I mean, that's where we're at in 2022. We have aliens crashing in people's backyards trying to hijack forklifts. And that's what's going on. So, according to me, some of the most credible UFO sightings is the one that happened in Zimbabwe at the school, the one that happened in Brazil, the Scottish Highlands photograph, and number five, or number fourth one that I can mention is a UFO story that I heard years ago on a radio program on NPR, National Public Radio. I believe is Radio Lab. And normally NPR, I used to listen to NPR for years, and they would be the platform to make, they would be where you would hear journalists making fun of UFO sightings. And UFO sightings is something that NPR would never cover. And if they did, it would be a novelty and just as a joke. But this was a full-fledged story that they were talking about on NPR, and it's called the Linda incident. I don't have any information about it in front of me, but supposedly in Manhattan, I believe, a woman named Linda was abducted by an alien. And what gives this story so much credence is there were many witnesses on the ground, because she was in a 12th floor apartment, and apparently a spacecraft hovered around her apartment, and people walking on the street in New York City thought they were filming a movie. They're like, hey, look, that looks real. But it was real. And there were police officers on the scene. They got numerous calls, and the police officers, went on record saying this, and witnesses went on record saying this, and they corroborated with, or corroborated, whatever the fucking word is, with they agreed with Linda's story. And Linda, apparently a beam of light came shining into her bedroom when she experienced sleep paralysis, and the beam of light picked her up and slowly brought her out of the window of her 12th floor apartment into the air over the streets of Manhattan and into the UFO, into the space, into the flying disc. And from what I remember, the creatures performed experiments, and also there was some SA involved. So imagine being SA'd by, big-eyed space alien. Like, that's got to be some scary shit. I mean, give it up. I know, I don't know, I think it's National Women's Day, but we got to, take our cap off to women, because they have to experience so much kind of harassment, not even close to what I've experienced. They even have to worry about getting SA'd by giant-eyed space aliens. So, but yeah, that one as well. So as far as I'm concerned, the best evidence, if you want to look on your own, we have the Scottish Highlands. That's the best photograph. The best abduction story is in New York City, and the most credible sightings would be in Brazil and in South Africa. I mean, excuse me, Zimbabwe. In my own personal opinion, there's a lot of different other ones, but those ones, and as well as the military ones we're going to go over, those are the most credible. One thing I want to point out is all this talk about UFO and the Pentagon being slowly dripping the information. Like, yeah, aliens are real, a few months ago. Then, yeah, a few days ago, yeah, we may have gotten a few, space machines, yeah, we've re-engineered some of them. But one thing they haven't gotten to is, yeah, sometimes people are like abducted and they have experiments on them. All the cows in Texas has a lot of cows, and for years since post World War II, there's been all these mysterious cow slaughterings, and like where cows would have like their tongues taken out and there would be no drop of blood, or cows would have like all their organs removed and there would be no sign of a struggle. And longhorns too, hook'em horns, all across Texas, and nobody could really explain that. But I think it's becoming obvious what happened to those longhorns. And so, but that's the one thing they're not mentioning, is that the abduction part is the scariest part, and that kind of shows the malevolence of the aliens. Like, they're not necessarily our friends. where, here to analyze. And in my estimation, any element, what are the aliens doing here? They could have, blown up our planet without setting foot into our atmosphere. So what are they doing here? Well, you could say that maybe they're looking for an element or a mineral that is extremely rare throughout the universe, like gold. Like gold is rare throughout the universe. However, every single element, even the most rare element that's found in the universe, can be created in a laboratory by humans. So these creatures are not looking for any element, any gold, any diamond. They can create on their own if they're able to travel. If they're so advanced. If you guys are so advanced, what are you doing on Earth? You trying to steal our gold, you big-eyed freaks? No, they're so advanced. They're not looking for any elements. What Earth does have that seems to be very rare, as far as we can see throughout the universe, is life. Earth is full of life. There's millions, hundreds of thousands of different creatures and plants and bugs and mammals and humans and everybody, and it seems to be extremely rare throughout the universe. And I don't think of any other reason, if aliens have traveled here, that they would want with the Earthlings. And that would also explain how they sometimes abduct humans and conduct experiments on them, the same way humans conduct experiments on every other animal on this planet. We don't even think twice about it. We don't think twice about stepping on ants. Maybe we'll, walk to the side if we see an ant on the sidewalk. Like, we don't have to go out of our way to step on them. But that's probably the same perspective aliens have on humans. They're not going to go out of their way to step on us, but they're also not going to change what they're doing as well. And they're obviously not only studying humans, they're also studying cattle and probably every other animal on this earth. The only thing that they could be after, the only thing that we have that separates us from every other planet that we've ever seen or discovered, is life. And that's the only reason aliens would be here. All right, so we went over my top UFO sightings. I told you what I believe aliens are doing here. Now let's see the 5 most credible modern UFO sightings by the History Channel. What do a saucer, a wingless tic tac, and a mile-long strobe have in common? They all defy explanation. In 2017, several news organizations revealed the existence of Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, a U.S. government-funded program that investigated unidentified flying objects between 2007 and 2012. This secret $22 million program, however, was not the first of its kind. Official government UFO studies began in the late 1940s with Project Sign, providing some of the most credible videos of aerial phenomena to date. Within a few years, the program eventually evolved into Project Blue Book, which actively investigated UFO sightings throughout much of the Cold War. The 2017 revelation that the U.S. government was actively researching UFOs reignited world interest in UFOs and aliens. Below, here are the 5 most believable UFO sightings of the 21st century. So this is 2000 and beyond, the best sightings. I wonder if the Phoenix Lights are going to make this list. 2017, when the New York Times dropped their expose about UFOs, that's when I started researching them. That's when I started getting interested in them, just like many other intelligent people. Before 2017, like I said, it was the consensus that it was all bullshit. And I actually believe that shit. I even voted for Obama. What the fuck was I thinking? Seriously. Number 1, the lights above the New Jersey Turnpike. It takes a lot for motorists to stop along a highway to look at the sky. But on July 14th, 2001, drivers on the turnpike did just that. For around 15 minutes just after midnight, they marveled at the sight of strange orange and yellow lights in a V formation over the Arthur Kill waterway between Staten Island and Carteret, New Jersey. Carteret Police's Department, Daniel Tarrant, was one of the witnesses, as well as other metro area residents. Air traffic controllers initially denied that any airplanes, military jets, or space flights could have caused the lights, but a group known as the New York Strange Phenomenon Investigators claimed to receive FAA radar data that corroborated the UFO sightings. So they tried to lie about it. The air traffic controllers said that they did not see anything, but a separate group, the Strange Phenomenon Investigators, located FAA data that said otherwise. All right, number 2, that was in 2001. So if that happened now, they would be like, yeah, there's UFOs. So number 2, the USS Nimitz encounter, 2004. On November 14th, 2004, the USS Princeton, part of the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, noted an unknown craft on radar 100 miles off the coast of San Diego. For 2 weeks, the crew had been tracking objects that appeared at 80,000 feet and then plummeted to hover right above the ocean. When 2 FA-18 fighter jets from the aircraft carrier Nimitz arrived in the area, they first saw what appeared to be churning water with a shadow of an oval shape underneath the surface. Then, in a few moments, a white tic-tac shaped object appeared above the water. It had no visible markings to indicate an engine, wings, or windows, and infrared monitors didn't reveal any exhaust. Black Aces Commander David Fravor, that you can see on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Lieutenant Commander Jim Slott of Strike Fight Squadron 41 attempted to intercept the craft, but it accelerated away, reappearing on radar 60 miles away. It moved 3 times the speed of sound and more than twice the speed of fighter jets. All right, number 3, O'Hare International Airport. Flight 446 was getting ready to fly to North Carolina from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport when a United Airlines employee on the tarmac noticed a dark gray metallic craft hovering over gate C-17. That day, November 7, 2006, a total of 12 United employees and a few witnesses outside the airport spotted the saucer-shaped craft at around 4:15 in the afternoon. The witnesses say it hovered for about 5 minutes before shooting upward, where it broke a hole in the clouds enough that pilots and mechanics could see the blue sky. The news report became the most read story on the Chicago Tribune's website to that date and made international news. However, because the UFO was not seen on radar, the FAA called it a weather phenomenon. So yeah, these aren't reported on at all until now. Number 4, the Stephenville sightings. The small town of Stephenville, Texas, been there many times, 100 miles southwest of Dallas, is mostly known for its dairy farms. But in the evening, that's where Bluebell ice cream is made. But in the evening of January 8, 2008, dozens of its residents viewed something unique in the sky. Citizens reported seeing white lights above Highway 67, first in a single horizontal arc and then in vertical parallel lines. Local pilot Steve Allen estimated that the strobe lights spanned about a mile long and a half-mile wide, traveling about 3,000 miles per hour. No sound was reported. Witnesses believe the event was reminiscent of the Phoenix Light sightings of 1997, while the U.S. Air Force revealed weeks later that F-16s were flying in the Brownwood military operating area. Many townspeople didn't buy that explanation, believing that what they saw was too technologically advanced for current human abilities. Yeah, people aren't believing all the bullshit. All right, lastly, have number 5, East Coast Go Fast video, 2015. When leaked in 2017 about the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, a video emerged that revealed an encounter between an F-18 Super Hornet and an unidentified aerial phenomenon. Seen along the East Coast on a Raytheon Advanced Targeting forward-looking infrared pod, the craft was similar to the one spotted off San Diego in 2004, a fast-moving white oval about 45 feet long without wings or exhaust plume. Okay, and that's the recent one that was released by the U.S. military that's all over the internet. But those are the top 5 recent ones of this decade of UFO evidence that you can look at the videos yourself. As far as my ones, the Zimbabwe incident, it's known as the Aerial School UFO incident. And from Wikipedia, it says, On the 16th of September, 1994, there was a UFO sighting outside Rua, Zimbabwe. 62 pupils at the aerial school aged between 6 and 12 said they saw one or more silver craft descend from the sky and land on a field near their school. One or more creatures dressed all in black then approached the children and telepathically communicated to them a message with an environmental theme, frightening the children and causing them to cry. The 14 writer Jerome Clark has called the incident the most remarkable close encounter of the third kind of the 1990s. Skeptics have described the incident as one of mass hysteria. Not all the children at the school that day stated that they saw something. Several of those that did maintain their account of the incident is true. Okay, so the incident. The sightings at Ariel occurred at 10 a.m. on September 16th when pupils were outside at mid-morning break during recess. The adult faculty at the school were inside having a meeting at the time. The entire incident lasted about 15 minutes. When the children returned to class, they told the teachers what they had seen but were dismissed. When they returned home, they told their parents. Many of those parents came to the school the next day to discuss what had happened with the faculty. The sightings were reported on ZBC radio, from where Cynthia Hind learned about it. The BBC correspondent in Zimbabwe, Tim Leach, visited the school the next day to film interviews with pupils and staff. After investigating this incident, Leach stated, "I could handle war zones, but I could not handle this." Hind visited the school on September 20th, and she interviewed some of the children and asked them to draw pictures of what they had seen. She reported the children all told her the same exact story. That November, Harvard University professor of psychiatry John Mack visited the school to interview witnesses. Throughout the 90s, Mack had investigated UFO sightings and had a particular interest in the alien abduction phenomena. In May 1994, the dean of Harvard Medical School, Daniel C. Todison, appointed a committee of peers to confidently review Mack's clinical care and clinical investigation of the people who had shared their alien encounters with him. Some of the cases were written in Mack's 94 book, Abduction. The issue was that Mack had communicated to these people that their experience may have been real. After 14 months, Harvard issued a statement stating the dean had reaffirmed Dr. Mack's academic freedom to study what he wishes. Okay. So according to the interviews, 62 children between the ages of 6 and 12 said that they had seen at least one UFO. Dozens more were present stated they had not seen any UFO or anything unusual. So the majority of them said that they did see something, and about a dozen of them said they didn't. One or more silver objects, usually described as discs, appeared in the sky, then floated down to a field of brush and small trees just outside the school property. Between 1 and 4 creatures with big eyes, dressed all in black, exited a craft and approached the children. At this point, many of the children ran, but some, mostly the older kids, stayed and watched the approach. According to Mack's interviews, the creature or creatures then telepathically communicated to the children an environmental message before returning to the craft and flying away. According to Dunning, the telepathic message aspect of the story was not included in Mack's report. In Mack's interviews, one fifth grader tells how he was warned about something that's going to happen, that pollution mustn't be. The thing is, my hypothesis that aliens are here because life is so rare throughout the universe, this would also, give credence to that, because these aliens are talking about, hey, you guys are ruining this beautiful planet through, you're destroying your own planet, and nuclear war is cutting fabrics in the space-time continuum, and you're doing all these horrible things. You don't understand how rare it is to have a planet like this. It's like if you lived on the block and everybody had like junk ass cars and with the wheels falling off and everything, and you had this nice red sports car Lamborghini, and would you treat it like crap? Would you let it get dirty every day, or would you wash it? Would you just like not change the oil and just let it go to shit and just be like, oh, well, I'll just get another one, I'll just move to Mars? What if it's so rare and we're treating our planet so poorly? And I think this all really comes together. I think aliens are here not to save us, not to hurt us. Just they know that we're fucking ruining our planet and it's going to end soon, and we're at a point where species are just going extinct like that. And I could see it's the jobs of these creatures, these entities, to preserve the history of all species, being that life is so rare. And we would do the same thing if we were on another planet and realized, oh, these species are becoming extinct. We should, save some of them, as evidence so people can see them in future generations. So that was the aerial school video. I also mentioned the #1 photograph that's ever been taken. The best UFO photograph is called the Calvine photo, and it was found after missing for 30 years. On August 4th, 1990, two hikers near Calvine in Scotland took a photograph of a mysterious diamond-shaped flying object hovering in the middle of the sky. For 32 years, that image, dubbed the Calvine photo, disappeared from the public eye, becoming the object of speculation, theories, and myths. But now the groundbreaking image was finally resurfaced thanks to the efforts of British journalist David Clark. In the photo, one of a series of 6, the hikers reportedly took, a diamond-shaped object can be seen flying in the sky, while a fighter jet can be seen spotted in the background not too far from it. If you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're not watching YouTube, go to my main YouTube page, and the background image I've used is this famous photograph of this famous UFO. And if you want to see a good photograph of a UFO, if you're tired of watching videos on TikTok of just lights going through the sky, and you want to see the best actual photograph of an unidentified flying freaking object, it's the Scottish Highlands photo, also known as the Calvine photo, taken by hikers. And I have the photo as my background image on my phone and on my computer just because I love looking at it. It's such a good photo. Like I said, you can even see the hatch on the actual spacecraft. I have a photo here. It's not really going to do it justice, but you see right there, that's the Royal Air Force following it. And that's the photograph, but it's a color photograph. This is black and white printer, but you can zoom in on it. And if you zoom in close enough, you can actually see a guy in the window. Like, no, seriously, that's the image that I want to see, because you can see a hatch or a door. So if somebody was like standing there, like at the door, you like picture them with like space goggles, just like, hey, that's the photo. That's what I'm going to come out next. There are supposedly photographs that people have seen that are in 4K, 8K of spacecraft like this that are right there. And those are going to be released soon. I'm not going to say when, but soon. So I'm glad I'm doing this podcast now, because currently on June 10th, 2023, this Scottish Highlands photo is the most famous photograph and the best photograph ever taken of an unidentified flying object. Like I said, though, there are some other photographs coming out that are going to put these to shame. I haven't seen them, but I've heard about them. All right. What does this photo show? Well, we don't know what happened to the men who took the photo. We do know that this happened 32 years ago. According to what Lindsay told Clark, the two men were working as chefs in a hotel in the Scottish Highlands when one summer evening they decided to go for a walk. While out walking, the two spotted a huge diamond-shaped flying object moving silently in the sky. They saw this thing in the sky and it scared them. They ran into some woodland to sort of keep their heads down, and they just heard this jet come down the valley. And then 2 minutes later, it returned and started circling around the object. And that's when they took these photographs. Whether what the two men saw in that summer in 1990 was actually a UFO, as the two men thought then, is still unclear. Clark had the photo analyzed by one of his colleagues, a lecturer in photography at Cheltenham University, who said the images show no sign of manipulation. It follows that this is either a genuine unidentified flying object in the sky, or that any construction or manipulation used to create this effect occurred in front of the camera and not in the capturing of the scene or film, nor the subsequent processing and printing of the image. So the reason this image is known as the best UFO image, just because it's such a good picture. You can zoom in, you can see details on the spacecraft. Also, it was missing for 32 years. The government did not want anybody to see this. And it's been given to experts, photographic experts, some of the best in the world, that have said there is no sign of manipulation. If this is a fake, then it was all done in front of the camera. Like I said, you see a Royal Air Force jet behind the spacecraft. It'd be really hard to fake that. It'd be really hard to get a jet there and to get an actual spacecraft there. Just looking at it, that's a reason I made it as my background. I'll stare at that picture for a long time. It's the most authentic picture of a UFO, and UFOs do exist. All right. With that being said, we're going to go and wrap it up today. We'll talk more about UFOs, unidentified flying objects. I'll go more into details about the Brazil UFO incident, and we'll talk more about the one that happened in New York City as well. Everybody have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Aloha.